How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Vinyl Brotherhood. Believe it or not, it's been 1, 2, maybe close to 10 years since the last Gaslight Anthem album, but they're back again, and of course it is our responsibility, our sworn duty to give this album a review. So we're going to do just that, get comfortable, and we'll get started here momentarily. It has been close to a decade now, but Brian Fallon and the guys have made their grand return with their latest album, History Books. Gaslight Anthem kind of takes me back to my college days, actually. That was when I was at the height of my Gaslight Anthem fandom, right around the release of their album, Handwritten. I was drawn to the passion and urgency of their earthy heartland rock, marinated in the Jersey sound and seasoned with a twinge of Americana. Drawing from rich musical traditions, I could always count on these guys to scratch itches I didn't even know I had at the time, and they've been a cool band to revisit every so often. But alas, the years have flown by, and together we're going to find out what these fellas have been up to all this time, what's left to be said from the world of Jersey rock and roll. What are these guys bringing to the table? Let's take this LP over to the record player and we'll give it a spin, shall we?
What's that you say? I knew you when you don't look too much like my friend. Those history books filled up with crooks, stories I don't want to read again. I've tried.
All right, let's take a look at our album artwork. History Books by the Gaslight Anthem. I like this quite a bit. Some cool type choices, and we have some chick here wearing a black leather jacket. Track listing on the back, pretty straightforward. But there is something written in the liner notes from Alex that kind of stood out to me, a little heartwarming, if you will. It says, keep in mind, this is their first album in a very long time, but he writes, "Also, thank you for reminding me why we got into this to begin with, to make rad music with our friends that can transcend our own moment and become something more." And that is very true for the Gaslight Anthem. Their music has a very timeless quality. And I think there is also an element of novelty to the Gaslight Anthem that has made their work so memorable and exciting in the past. They're like if Springsteen, Tom Petty, and Paul Westerberg joined forces almost. The rugged blue-collar presentation of their work makes perfect sense with their slightly gritty guitar tones and the heartfelt and personal lyrics, vividly detailing the day in and day out of the all-American perpetual underdog. Not many, if anyone, is doing this exact thing, much to the benefit of the band and us who get to enjoy their magic formula. Back again are the usual suspects: Benny Horowitz on drums, Alex Levine on bass, Alex Rosamilia with the noodly guitar leads, and Brian Fallon with his world-weary singing voice, bringing us their sixth effort. The first track, Spider Bites, kicks things off in a big way, big and bold, before the verse ushers us into some very comfortable Gaslight Anthem territory. The chorus is characteristically catchy and anthemic as well, no pun intended. And the production choices on Spider Bites, unfortunately, they do quite a disservice to an otherwise really decent song. The lead guitar tone sounds super tinny, and Brian's vocal sounds like he's singing in the shower and we're all in the living room, awkwardly looking at each other like, do you hear that? The whole arrangement sounds very suffocated and compromised with the exception of the drums right at the forefront of the mix. And I really wish I could say that this jarring treatment is unique to Spider Bites, but to my dismay, it appears to be the norm on History Books. And you'll notice that a hefty amount of my criticism in this review will be directed toward the album's sound. The title track, again, is adequate from the songwriting and lyrical aspect, but the performance felt a little weak and half-hearted to me. In a move that seems somewhat long overdue, Bruce Springsteen himself shows up to provide the vocal for the second verse. And, it's not like he popped in to deliver a Born to Run level performance, but even his brief and understated appearance easily overshadows what Brian Fallon brings to the table. And I'm not saying that to mean that Brian is lesser, because the dude's got some serious bangers in his discography. He either just didn't bring it, or the mix really did just smother his performance. However, I am happy to say that since release day, Spider Bites and History Books have grown on me as songs in and of themselves. They're good for what they are. It's just those mixing choices though, I'm not sold, plain and simple. And the next couple of tracks, they kind of ease up on that. Autumn and Positive Charge are both decent little tunes. Autumn slows it down a bit and throws in a gospel feel, complete with lyrics about angels, water, and mud for the full effect. It's not my favorite tune, but it separates itself from the rest of the track listing, and Positive Charge as well has a bigger and more earnest mood to it. The guitars are blazing at the start of this one, something that they're pretty good about on this album, I'm now noticing. It's got one of the better choruses, although the vocal sounds like the scratch track version, the demo, but the lyric is pretty strong and relatable as Brian is grasping at a life he loves yet again. He has a gift for making the lyrics sound so simple and natural without coming across as cliche. And that'll always be true of Brian Fallon. Michigan 1975 has that same weird chorusy effect on the lead guitar, and it's being used to great effect here, although it is accompanied by the hiss of the amplifier. One could argue that it's an aesthetic choice, but I at this point think my trust has been shaken a little bit. I'm all for the lo-fi treatment, but it hinders and distracts when it doesn't have that sense of intentionality. On the plus side, the aforementioned guitar work graces the song for its entire 4-minute runtime, but even greater is the percussive work that pops in and out, utilizing the space very well. And thank God, Brian is in great form here vocally, sounding clear and present, and giving his lyrics a heartfelt and delicate performance that they deserve. The introduction to Little Fires instantly reminded me of the Replacements, and they really nail the crunch on those power chords. I know the Replacements are often characterized for their relative lack of polish, and part of me wonders if that's kind of what Gaslight Anthem was going for here. And I'm sorry to keep harping on the production values. Please let me know if you disagree. So Little Fires is a pretty good tune. They match the Replacements energy, and it's all fine and dandy. Thankfully, it pops a little more than some of the other tracks on History Books, and part of that might be because Alex Levine really shows up on this one with a nasty solo. For as uneven as the results might be, I have to applaud the band for playing around with the guitar sound on this album as much as they have. Next up we have The Weatherman, which provides yet another serviceable melody and chorus with the somewhat simple metaphor of I'm a weatherman watching the sky trying to read you. I won't say I hate it, but it features a super tired and overly simple modern folk pop hook, if you will. You know, the chimey toy piano sounding thing with the angelic chorus singing whoa in the background. Actually, I might actually hate this. There just isn't much here to redeem the song for me. But in that same slower and darker vein, we get Empires. Thematically and lyrically, I have to call this one a high point. Brian explores the corruption of the human heart and puts himself in the shoes of a graceless person in a graceless world. A just and righteous God even makes an appearance, and yet the song doesn't exactly have the happiest ending. There is an appropriate frailty to the band's performance on display, but the song still feels grand in scope, thanks to a nice delay on the snare drum and a spacious mix. I Live in the Room Above Her may also be one of the stronger cuts in my opinion. The visceral energy of the guitars translate the tape exceptionally well, and the performances are certainly there. Even the concept is interesting, as Brian tells about the woman living in the apartment beneath his own and how he hears her singing to herself or the records she's playing. And of course, I have to wonder what could have been had the song been mixed a little better, but this is a song that I have found myself revisiting in preparation for this review. The last song, A Lifetime of Preludes, sounds surprisingly typical of a Gaslight Anthem closing tune, leaning into the folksy Americana sound as they're wont to do. It's the bittersweet Gaslight ballad we all know and love, but with a touch of History Books' chorusy Latin guitar lead. I wouldn't call it a replacement for National Anthem or We Did It When We Were Young, but it plays its role on the album with notable success. And that rounds out the track listing. The album is come and gone, and I truly wish I could say I love it or even like it, but I'm mostly just left with indifference. There aren't any big, shocking new ideas presented or even big musical statements being made, unless you want to count their new approach to music production. And the big plot twist here is that this album was produced by Peter Caddis, a gentleman who has worked on a lot of my favorite albums, some by the likes of Interpol and The National. Well, every album is a different beast, and there's no telling where the creative process can take you. Brian Fallon still seems to have a lot to say, and I don't think there are really any big missteps on the lyrical front, but much like with the solo work that I've listened to by him, there just isn't enough there musically to lure me in. I even had to go back and listen to the old stuff to check if it lived up to my fond memories, and sure enough, the Gaslight of yesteryear didn't sound quite as redundant, but rather brimming with life and color. I'm obviously not expecting these dudes to do a retread or make the same album over and over and over. In fact, I think history books would have to bring something fresher to the table to better justify its existence, but there's some fundamentals being lost here. I would have given these songs maybe a little more time in the oven, but the nicest thing I can say about it is that it's serviceable. If you like Gaslight at all, then I can't imagine you'll be too upset with it. If you're big into lyrics, then you'll probably have a better time than I did with it. It just really hurts to not love this album, especially after all the anticipation. In any case, it's nice to still have them around. Whatever they do next, I'll definitely be around to check it out. So that's about it. Let's head on back so I can close this out. When I first listened to the 2014 album Get Hurt, I was already getting the feeling that some of the magic had worn off, and I wouldn't say history books breathe much new life into the formula. And while it isn't terribly offensive, it just becomes a blur when it's at its worst and merely adequate and, dare I say, derivative at its best. For every good moment in history books, there's a better version of the same kind of song on a prior album, maybe with the exception of I Live in the Room Above or Empires, which do feel like they're bringing something valuable to their catalog. From what I've seen online though, it looks like I'm in the minority for not gushing over this album, but I'm not gonna lie to you, and all this comes from a fan as well, so take it for what you think it's worth. Going with my gut, I have to give History Books by the Gaslight Anthem a 5.5 out of 10 today. After several listens, I gave it in order to provide a solid opinion. I'm not exactly dying to revisit it anytime soon, but at the very least, it has got me curious to see where Gaslight Anthem goes from here. They're a very special band, and I think with a bit of inspiration and renewed vigor, they can easily turn into something amazing. But perhaps you think differently. I'd love to read each and every thought you have about this record. I'm sure it connected differently with some of you, our viewing audience. So hit up the comments down below and let me know what you think. And while you're at it, be sure to like this video, sub, share, all that good stuff. It's a huge help for us. So thanks for watching and giving us some of your time. We've got some fun stuff coming up in the near future, so be sure to keep those eyes peeled. Have an amazing week, everyone, and we'll see you back here at the Vinyl Brotherhood very soon.